Good evening. We begin tonight with a significant development in U.S. foreign policy. President Donald Trump announced during a cabinet meeting on December 2nd that the U.S. military will begin conducting strikes on land targets inside Venezuela very soon. This move would mark a major escalation in a conflict that has been developing since September, when the U.S. military targeted boats in the Caribbean Sea that officials claimed were involved in trafficking drugs into the United States. Speaking at the White House, the president was direct when asked if the military would strike within Venezuela's borders. He stated, "We're going to start doing those strikes on land too." He added, "We know where they live. We know where the bad ones live, and we're going to start that very soon." The international reaction to the initial reports has been swift, with several Latin American governments expressing deep concern over the potential for regional destabilization. From foreign policy to domestic concerns, President Trump also used the cabinet meeting to address the issue of economic affordability, a topic for which he has faced criticism. The president defended his administration's record, placing the blame for high prices squarely on the previous administration. He claimed he inherited the worst inflation in history. In his remarks, President Trump also took aim at his political opponents, stating, "The Democrats talk about affordability. They just say the word. It doesn't mean anything to anybody." However, the issue of high prices remains a primary concern for many American households. A recent Yahoo YouGov poll conducted last month suggests the public is divided on the president's impact. In that survey, 49% of respondents said they believe President Trump has contributed to higher prices. In contrast, 24% said he has helped lower prices, and another 17% felt he has had little to no effect either way. The president's comments highlight the ongoing political battle over the economy and the persistent pressure on his administration to address the rising cost of living for families across the country. While the president outlined his policy goals, his administration faced a notable setback in the federal courts this week. A federal judge on Tuesday blocked a key provision of the president's major tax and domestic policy legislation, known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The provision would have eliminated Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood and its local partners in 22 states. The ruling came from U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani in Boston, who sided with a group of Democratic attorneys general that had filed a lawsuit against the measure. In her decision, Judge Talwani stated that the plaintiffs are likely to succeed in their argument that the funding cut creates an unconstitutional condition on the state's participation in the Medicaid program. She described the language in the law as impermissibly ambiguous. Furthermore, the judge warned that cutting off these funds would likely backfire, potentially increasing the percentage of patients unable to receive birth control and preventive screenings, which could in turn prompt an increase in overall healthcare costs for the states. The preliminary injunction has been deferred for 7 days to give the federal government time to file an appeal. This legal battle comes as Planned Parenthood reports that 20 of its health centers have closed since September, underscoring the tangible consequences of the ongoing disputes over its funding. Staying with legal and federal matters, the Department of Justice is taking aggressive action on another front: election integrity. The DOJ announced on Tuesday that it has filed federal lawsuits against 6 states, accusing them of violating federal law by refusing to provide their statewide voter registration rolls upon request. The states named in the suits are Delaware, Maryland, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. The complaints, filed by the DOJ's Civil Rights Division, argue that these states have failed to meet their legal obligations under 3 separate federal statutes: the National Voter Registration Act, the Help America Vote Act, and the Civil Rights Act of 1960. These laws collectively require states to maintain accurate voter rolls and make those records available for public inspection to ensure transparency. In a statement, Attorney General Pam Bondi said, "Accurate voter rolls are the cornerstone of fair and free elections, and too many states have fallen into a pattern of non-compliance." She affirmed that the department will continue its legal actions until states comply with these safeguards. Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights Harmeet Dillon added that the department is escalating its enforcement efforts ahead of the 2026 election cycle, stating, "At this Department of Justice, we will not stand for this open defiance of federal civil rights laws." The lawsuits will now proceed in federal court, where judges could order the states to turn over their voter lists and impose deadlines for compliance. This action is part of a broader push by the DOJ to enforce transparency requirements, arguing it is essential for preventing errors and ensuring public confidence in election outcomes. The issue of election law is also playing out at the state level, with significant developments emerging from Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis has announced his intention to call lawmakers back to Tallahassee for a special session next spring. The purpose of the session will be to redraw the state's congressional district map ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. The timing of this special session, however, is contingent on a major case currently before the U.S. Supreme Court. Governor DeSantis explained that the state is waiting on the High Court's decision regarding Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. That section of the landmark 1965 law prohibits states from enacting any voting law that results in discrimination against voters based on race or color. Historically, it has been interpreted to require states to draw congressional districts with a majority of African American or other minority voters, if it is possible to do so. The Supreme Court heard arguments in the case in October, and its eventual ruling could fundamentally alter how Section 2 is interpreted and applied, not just in Florida, but across the entire country. The decision will set the legal parameters for Florida's lawmakers as they undertake the contentious process of redistricting, a process that will have major implications for the balance of political power in the U.S. House of Representatives,